Oh, that's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And Jacob Wild too.
And Rohith Dar.
And oh boy, guys, we're talking Eternals. Aren't you excited?
Jacob Wild too.
And Rohith Dar.
And oh boy, guys.
Oh,
shoot. Eternals.
Oh, God.
Hold on. Okay, someone's playing the video.
It's off. It's off.
Okay. All right, so take two. Okay, so we've introduced everyone. So what are we here to talk about? Eternals. We're here to talk about Eternals.
Yes.
Yes.
Jacob, we might have an echo issue going on. Or is it you or is it me?
I mean, I have no idea.
I was thinking maybe because we're literally using the same account, it might have done it on our end, but...
Well, it seems to have fixed itself.
Okay, good. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, we're talking Eternals. Woo. Guys, I literally I'm not even kidding. A couple hours ago, I went through McDonald's and I was like, oh my God, they've got Eternals Happy Meal toys. Fuck yeah.
Really?
I'm not even kidding.
I mean, it's a Marvel movie. I would be very surprised if it didn't have, Happy Meal toys.
Well, you know what's funny about those Happy Meal toys, just to kind of start off there, I guess. I've been collecting the MCU Happy Meal toys. They're basically little you kind of snap the bases together and you can arrange them any which way you like. I got them on a shelf somewhere. So basically, they did that for Endgame and then for the Disney Plus shows and the stuff that started coming out last year and then this year.
What do you think, Dragon? You gonna collect them all?
Well, let's find out.
Okay. All right, guys. So Eternals. This is the Oscar award-winning director Chloe Zhao's first, probably only entry into the MCU, if we're being honest. Yeah, I've had a bit of a ride with this, so I'm gonna go ahead and go first. I was pretty on board. I was like, oh, how could this fail? This is larger than life. This is cosmic. If Guardians of the Galaxy worked, this could totally work. And you've got an Academy Award-winning director. Well, I will say this isn't my least favorite MCU movie. It's not. I would probably say I would categorize my least favorite MCU movies as still kind of probably the obviously Dark World, Captain Marvel, Ragnarok, or not Ragnarok, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Iron Man 2. Those four, Incredible Hulk, that's probably my bottom five right there. This is at least ambitious, and this at least has personality to it, whereas the five that I just listed, they're pretty interchangeably mediocre. So, this is at least a unique level of bad. I don't know, man. There's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. I will say that I think one of the big problems with it is that, pretty much down the line, I feel like some of the characters with the least amount of screen time are the most interesting. And the characters with the most amount of screen time just fucking bore me to tears. I'm wondering if you guys are feeling the same way about that. But I think the plot is a mess. The plot is absolutely all over the place. It's definitely got some intriguing ideas, some intriguing concepts to mull over in the grand scheme of the MCU, but that's really about it. I don't know, man. It definitely felt its 2.5 hour runtime. And I have two little factoids I want to kind of throw at you guys. Number one is the fact that Facebook literally just blocked the post that I made that was tagging myself. I'm at Cinema West Boulevard Cinemas and I'm seeing Eternals. And I'm like, I literally do that for every movie. Like, why is that considered spam for Eternals? I don't know. I just thought that was funny. And then also, so you guys know how we have a certain song come over the Marvel logo in this movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got so excited when I heard that song. That's one of my all-time favorite songs. I'm a big Pink Floyd song. And I was just like, oh my God. Oh my God. We're about to get like
Sorry.
What?
is that your bird?
No, it was a phone. I had an ad popped up.
Oh, okay.
I just thought you found that really funny, Jacob. I didn't know
I
it was-
know. I was like, okay. Like, wow.
It's like that
are
scene
you
from
really
Mask of the
know where I'm going
Phantasm with
this?
Arthur Reeves, where he just got injected with the.
Pink Floyd. Yeah, Pink Floyd. All right.
Anyway,
So guys, I was totally Dragon, remind me that movie with fucking Dane DeHaan, The City of a Thousand Planets or whatever.
Valerian.
Yeah. So I was totally expecting like a Valerian style montage of like, oh man, like we're gonna be playing Pink Floyd's Time. Like, all right, let's get a montage of like how the Eternals have affected civilization throughout the centuries. This is gonna be great, man. It's like I don't even care if the rest of the movie doesn't live up to this. This song, but plus that idea for a montage, it's so good. And then we literally, it's just like ticket away the moments that make up a dull day, and that's it. That's all we get. It's literally, it's just like a. So right off the bat, right, it's just like they took a great song choice, and they just literally just crumple it up in a ball of garbage and throw it away. They just throw it away. And I was just not on the movie side at all, just like right from the jump. I think there's some interesting characters. I think Barry Keoghan is like by far the most interesting character, in my opinion. I think the movie would have been a lot better if you would have been the main character, frankly. We'll get into him. Like I said, I think a lot of the characters are just kind of baseline boring. Who wants to go next?
I guess I'll go.
Go ahead.
All right. I feel like I can't foretell Jacob and Dragon's opinion on this movie. I feel like I might be the most positive out of the four. I don't know if y'all saw my rankings in the Eternal Spoilercast channel on Geekvolution, but ranking just all the MCU projects, both Disney Plus and movies, like I ranked this as number 11, and I feel like me and then a few other people had really a positive experience. The most surprising, which is Connor, because in line with
That is surprising.
It is really, it is true.
because for me and Connor, like
We love Connor, by the way.
no. But what's interesting for me, it's like Connor and I probably disagree, at least in terms of our feelings towards the other Phase 4 projects, with the exception maybe Black Widow and What If for the most part. Every other project, like the Disney Plus shows at least, and Shang-Chi, like I don't think Connor's liked them as much as I have. But for whatever reason, this movie, it seems Connor and I, and then who else liked this movie as much as I think Torgo, like it seems that at least in the Geek Boost community, most people didn't love it, and then a few people did love it. And I'd say for me, I can understand the issues that some people have with this movie. And for me, I think this movie won me over. Not immediately. It took me a while to sort of get into sort of where the movie was heading. And then once the main plot, sort of where the main conflict, was, that's where the movie hooked me. And I think I can understand where people are sort of, have issues with the pacing. And I can certainly understand with the flashback sequences, the way that they're sort of inserted. You could have made a better point of like having them all at once, or maybe have
Or a montage
a montage. I would think that, but
set to a certain song.
I get that. But I
Sorry.
understand why like the flashbacks were where they were, because then you kind of give context to sort of what happens in certain present day scenes. At least I understand the logic of it. Was it executed as well as to most people's satisfaction? I would understand not, but I think for me, what I really appreciated about this movie was that it went beyond the traditional superhero, movie formula, not even an MCU formula, to really go into sort of grand sci-fi themes of like the worth of humanity, what's sort of our place in the universe in terms of, are we so special enough to deny this sort of cycle that's been happening for eons and millennia before, our existence? and that grand, discussion that I think is really, girded to this like very. I think for the most part, the cast, like I can, like to my opinion, I think certain characters aren't given much development as the other characters, but I think the scenes that really, rang the strongest to me are when all the characters are like having those intimate family moments, and you really get to see the chemistry of the cast really shine. And I think that sort of made me feel like attached to the Eternals, like generally speaking, with maybe my liking certain characters more than others. Like for me, the standards in terms of like characters were Kingo, Fastos, and Druid. Cersei and Icarus were sort of in the middle.
I think those three that you just listed should have been the three main characters.
Sure. And I think Cersei, Icarus, I don't think they're the worst or least interesting. They're in the middle. With alongside say Gilgamesh, and I think the least interesting, the ones that didn't capture me as much, I would say would be Sprite, Thena, and
Makari.
Ajax. Makari, I think she's just cool. Like she's not much to do, so like I didn't get enough to like. She's visually interesting the way they do her powers, but I feel like we put her mid tier, and like the other three, Sprite, Thena, and Ajax, I just feel like we're as captivating. But I think the way this movie goes about like the big questions, I think it's just such a fascinating like attempt to go beyond what a superhero movie goes through at its thematic core. And I think for me, like maybe it's might be wishing too much, but I think maybe after several years, I think people might reappraise this movie and find more to like. But in the media term, I think I don't see the Eternals necessarily being a property that will continue in a sequel, like be greenlit and see in the next like 2 or 3 years. However, I think these characters have a lot of potential that can be utilized in other projects, and they have such an interesting mythology. And I just don't think it's not just the mythology itself. I just think the characters are interesting and have a lot of potential. And I think Chloe Zhao's like direction, the way she films stuff, it's the most visually stunning of the Marvel movies. And I hope other directors get that sort of opportunity to like really showcase like their visual, stamp. And I think those movies could have a lot more, staying power and go away from this sort of critique of MCU movies sort of having this bland visual palette. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts.
Jacob?
Well, I don't think I'll be able to go into as in depth as Rohith did, but I would say I'm on the positive side as well. I mean, again, I probably rank this as a mid-tier MCU movie, but it does a lot of things. I will concede that it does a lot of things right. I mean, maybe my character rankings would be slightly different as well. I mean, I'll probably get into that later on. But overall, I'm overly satisfied with the movie. I do think it carried on a bit too long, as it probably could have ended a couple times, or some scenes could have been excised or done differently. Because there's a difference between a film that is long and uses its time, and a film that is long and doesn't use its time well. And I think this is one of those ones that kind of like teeters in between. Like you feel them like it definitely has a bit of a pacing problem in some areas. So, but I don't think that's not a major deterrent in the movie at all. And
Okay.
I didn't really have an issue with the whole flashbacks either. I mean, at least it didn't delve into like flashbacks within flashbacks and switch time periods within the same flashback or anything like that. So, I think it's a good step for Chloe Zhao, and I think hopefully she does come back to do more in the MCU, maybe as a sequel to this. That's all I have to say for right now.
All right. So it's no secret. I was very turned off by the Eternals marketing in general, and I mean, honestly, just finding an image for this show tonight, it was near impossible because all the posters were all standing around, very, unexcitingly. This is literally the only image I could find where they're kind of doing something. So I'm saying,
and even
marketing,
here, they're still just kind of posing. They're not really doing much.
that's what I'm saying. Like, the most exciting thing I could see is them standing in sand versus just a flat, just kind of the flat area with their. Anyway, my point is, just on all fronts, marketing did not win me over on this movie, which means I was going in completely blind. I knew very little about. I know basically like why we have an Eternals comic. That's about all I know about the Eternals. That and the whole Deviant and how the Eternals are kind of like the byproducts, the Celestials and the Deviants. That's about as far as I knew.
Yeah.
Going into this thing. So traditionally, look, before this movie, to kind of give you all like a moment of suspense here. So traditionally, I've always maintained the MCU, kind of along the lines of Pixar to an extent. It hasn't turned out a truly offensively bad film, like a Fan Four Stick, for example. The MCU has not turned out a Fan Four Stick or a Superman 4. They haven't turned out something that's like truly like, oh, it burns. Nothing like that. No cat. So you just somehow have to rank on the lower part of the totem pole, not because they're terrible movies, because they've been vastly outshined by the things towards the top, like your Winter Soldiers or your Guardians of the Galaxies, or this and that. So it's all storied all the same. So my worry going into this movie, like again, I heard like I'm hearing bad stuff, I'm hearing good stuff. I don't know what to believe. I want to go with my own experience. So I'm going in maybe in the back of my mind the fear of like, oh man, what if this is the first clunker, like utter clunker in the MCU? Oh my God, it's taken over 10 years, but it's finally happened. So my verdict, I thought this was okay. It's not bad, but here's where I'm at though. It's a little hollow. And probably the most divorced experience I've been, watching an MCU film. I mean, I haven't had something like this since Captain Marvel. And Captain Marvel is more of like when you go back to it, it's kind of the realization, like, yeah, this is not holding up. Like each subsequent viewing, it's kind of tearing it down a little bit. Now, that's Captain Marvel. Eternals, though, I mean, I like more of it. I like more of it than I expected to. I mean, for example, the character stuff. I mean, I think I'm on board with the characters more than I thought I would, given like it's like 10 characters and we've usually introduced 5. That's it's kind of a tall order. That's even if with an extended runtime, that's like, okay, well, we have 10 characters to talk about and we don't even know who the bad guy is.
I still vividly remember being like super turned off by that first teaser trailer of Icarus being like, oh, well, maybe I could lead the Avengers. And then
We don't know who you are, man.
I know nothing about this character. Why should that be funny to me?
So,
I don't know if he'd make a good Captain America replacement or not.
So, to Chloe Zhao's credit, I think she sold me more on the characters than I thought. That said, we don't develop all the characters as much as I would like them.
I think the characters are the best part of this movie, though.
Yeah, I mean, again, we have great. I think we have great jumping off points for our characters. I just think some of them actually do something with it, where others are just kind of like, well, that was a good idea. It's a shame we didn't do more with that character. So here, I'm hearing a lot of I had major story issues with it, where I respect the ambition, and a lot of people are throwing the kind of the annoying kind of soundbite like it's unlike any of the other MCU films. It's so different. It's going such a different direction. Well, I'm saying, what's the point then? Why is it an MCU film at that juncture? If it's like it's so different, well, yeah, it's not necessarily the best thing. I mean, I fully admit we do need to jazz up the visual palette of the MCU films. Okay, we can't. Again, look at the Act 1 of Captain Marvel. It's dingy as all get out. We do need to, kind of like, throw some visually diverse in there and kind of like, get some directors that really want to have like kind of a visual or kind of like a stylistic standpoint. That's not a problem. I think the movie, as far as it was directed, was not bad. I just feel they picked one of the hardest properties to adapt. They gave it to a director I think they got blinded with, of like, we gotta put like a director's name that people are gonna know before it's like the Russos do everything. We need a director that people are gonna recognize, aside from Sam Raimi from the Spider-Man movies. We need someone trendy, someone hot. We need Chloe Zhao.
I don't necessarily think that Chloe Zhao is trendy per se.
Well, no, I mean trendy when she won the Oscar, Tiki. That's what I mean.
Well, yeah, but they got her for this before she won the Oscar.
Well, in that case, they lucked out on it.
She was doing this project like long before Nomadland even came out.
Yeah.
Fair point, but regardless, they did sell the heck out of it. Like Oscar winner Chloe Zhao. They did sell the heck out of that, though.
And to be fair, though, it's like comic books, like the comics themselves, each MCU film can be different from each other. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't excuse like different doesn't necessarily always mean good though. I'm just saying each comic book does have a different style, and it's always a good idea to have that adapted to the movies as well.
Well, that's true. I'm just saying the Eternals is a really high concept. Is kind of a high concept book, and I'm just saying no matter who did it, it would be a difficult thing to take on. I'm not saying like she was like she rose or sunk it necessarily, but regardless, for me though, it's fundamentally the way I feel about Eternals. It was so weird, like kind of coming down, like how do I feel about this movie? Because like out of all the MCU films, it's the first one I walked out of just not jazzed out of my mind about, like pretty much all the other MCU films, to some way, shape, or form. Like we got Skrulls in Captain Marvel, we had like the Nick Fury stuff, there were fun
I think
things.
this at least has more merit than Captain Marvel, just because with Captain Marvel, literally all you have there is like, Nick Fury and
See, that's the thing, though.
Nick Fury and Coulson, good old days, man. They have a good chemistry together.
And that's the thing, Tiki.
At least with this, you have like some really interesting ideas you can take away from
That's
it.
true, and that's what I'm saying. I think the ambitious stuff is what helps this movie, not just be like it's not what the critics are saying, like it's so terrible. It's not terrible at all, but it's not exactly.
I think the plot is bad.
I have major issues with the story, but here's the thing.
I agree with Rohith to a certain extent of like I think that the pondering of like the value of human life and stuff like that, like all that is very interesting.
But that's all we have. We have the.
I just don't think it's told in a good way at all.
I'm not crazy about how we patched it together. That's something.
But that's like something not a lot of people understand. It's like ambitious does not automatically equal good.
Yeah, totally.
No. I mean, there's such a thing as biting off more than you can chew, and I would say that. I think all the problems that I would have with this movie, for the most part, would be in the first, maybe if not the first half, maybe the first act, because I feel like my engagement isn't like if the first act, if how I felt with the first act carried through for the rest of the movie, then I kind of would feel be on like Blue Dragon Zone, where I think it's like, oh, it's okay, but I think once we get to the second, third act, where all the Eternals are together, and you get sort of the main conflict, where it's not just like Eternals versus Deviants, but really Eternals versus Celestials and the implications that come with it, that's where I'm hooked. So I feel like for me, I think the movie may have resonated more if the Deviants were just sort of, taken out of the picture and you kind of just went with like I feel like the main conflict should have been apparent from the jump of the movie.
I had an idea thinking on the movie for our conversation that kind of occurred to me that I think might have helped the story in a big way. All right. So here's the thing. So like
the funny thing is, I just remembered is actually they didn't actually come to like Chloe Zhao actually approached, from what I understand, approached them to do this kind of movie.
Yeah, she did. She approached them about Eternals specifically.
Okay, well, there you go. Well, again, the marketing has me all screwed up in every regard. Then, so anyway,
and then she got big with Nomadland, so it's actually got looked out for everyone involved.
All right, lucky. Anyway, what was I? So I guess two things. Okay, so first off, just for my kind of my wildment with the thing is that you take Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel has one big story. That has one major problem for me that I think really hurts that movie and hurts it on the rewatch is that. I like Captain Marvel. But I don't care about, Carol Danvers, and the whole movie is built around the point of like, you're going to care about Carol Danvers, all these flashbacks and everything we're building up. And that's what tanks that movie. So again, it's like one unilateral problem with that movie versus again, kind of an overarching story thing. So that's kind of where if I were to say, which do I like better, Captain Marvel or this movie, it's hard for me to tell because that's one issue versus just kind of like story lines. All these story points aren't really connecting. My remedy, perhaps, for I think the story point that might really help the movie in retrospect would be, what if the big twist with the Eternals? There are two big twists in the Eternals here, and that we have we reveal the whole celestial the celestial reveal that they're essentially these constructs, more so the emergence. The emergence is what we learn about. The emergence is basically a celestial be born from the planet after the Thanos snap, returned all the people. The people power the celestial that's being born in the planet, and when it emerges, bye Earth. Not good news. So you have that reveal, and based on the fact that the Eternals, they've been getting in touch with humanity for like 5,000 years. All that humanity you've been pounding around with, kiss it goodbye. So it's kind of a hard reality for them to swallow. And then you have Icarus knowing that knowing this was going to be the case for a while. I feel if the Eternals weren't
Because
bonded,
it's not like that there was a world-ending crisis that literally wiped out half of the human population that the Eternals could have stepped in.
well, just
and
put a
dealt
pin
with
in that, Tiki.
everything.
We'll get there. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so
I'm like, literally, population control is your explanation? All right.
okay, my
Go
point.
ahead, sorry.
So here's what I'm getting at. I feel the thing that reunifies the Eternals is always in something kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Okay, so we have not. I keep wanting to say Ajax, but it's not, because that's Francis. No, it's Ajax. The Salma Hayek character, the matriarch of the Eternals. We're bonded. It's kind of like a murder, not necessarily a murder mystery plot, but it kind of turns into that. We're bonded over the death of a teammate, and that's kind of what kind of brings everyone together, and they learn about the emergence. I think what would have really helped the movie is
everyone having this super over-the-top emotional reactions to Ajax would get like 10 minutes of screen time with her interacting with the group.
Yeah, that for sure does not help. But my point is,
go ahead. Sorry.
What if the thing I'm having a hard time with the movie with is what breaks up the Eternals in the first place? Like, why I still can't remember for the life of me why exactly Icarus and Cersei aren't really together. I forget like why they broke up. And my point is like, what if we kind of teed up like a big moment with Druid where
why the hell did they go their separate ways? That's what I want to know.
So that's the thing. So Druid brought up a really interesting point. I think we could have had almost like a civil war within the Eternals that would have like kind of that kind of caused the split. Like, well,
that's absolutely what the whole movie should have been about. That was by far the most interesting plot element.
So here's what I'm saying. So take something like that. Whether that being the direct kind of fault line, but regardless, after that, perhaps they are all looped in at some point that, okay, here's the purpose of the Eternals, and that then they don't see each other again, and then they're coming back knowing that humanity is going to end, and they have thoughts and feelings about that, and they kind of come together wondering, should we save humanity? Should we not save humanity? That's
like, don't dance around the mystery.
Like, don't figure it out like the last 7 days beforehand.
Totally.
Like, not even the last 7 days. Don't figure out like a few hours before it happens. That if we just if they knew ahead of time, I think that might have been a different ball game. That's kind of what I think. Like, kind of ruminating on things after I've seen the movie. But so I'm sorry. Before we go on, Connor Nielsen, while he is not here with us, he did submit something he would like us to ruminate on. He would like to talk about. So Connor wants to talk about some of Chloe Zhao's kind of stuff, some kind of mythological influences on the movie, which she's been citing Zack Snyder. She's been kind of with the whole kind of Man of Steel.
I have very much heard that this is pretty much the MCU Zack Snyder film.
And to be fair, to give the movie where credit's due, it is, I think, more competently kind of showcased than there.
Yeah. So what's Connor's comment in particular? Question.
Well, yeah, he's he basically wants to talk about just kind of the mythology. Chloe Zhao kind of focused on the mythology and kind of the origins of stuff like that. For example, let me start like this. So, when Jack Kirby did the Eternals, he was doing New Gods at DC, and he basically Marvel tried to lure him back with like, hey, that New Gods book that you love, that DC kind of like canned essentially at some point. Let's lure you back over. You can do the Marvel version of the New Gods, which essentially is Eternals. See, Jack Kirby.
I love how with Jack Kirby, everyone was just like, "Hey, we can give you like instead of a salary negotiation, it was like a weird negotiation. Like, hey, you could go this weird. No, you could go this weird."
Yeah, and of course, Jack Kirby, he's always been kind of kicked around by the comic companies. So basically at this point, it was like, let me do basically have like a book that has just no art, no writer on it. Just like Kirby is the writer and the art. It's a Jack Kirby work entirely. So that's what really brought him over there. My point being, between New Gods and Eternals, his whole thing was cosmic mythology. Like he had cosmic mythology on the brain. There was this book released. This also influenced Chloe Zhao. It's called Chariots of the Gods, which essentially is about kind of is basically about kind of beings from space, kind of heady astronauts, if you will, who are the origin point for the ancient technologies and ancient monuments like the pyramids and all that sort of stuff on the planet. So that's kind of So that's kind of where the seat of the Eternals is, and that's kind of like, that's where you get all the, your Chloe Zhao landscapes and everything. That's kind of where you get like the conceit of the movie, where hey, they present the technologies that that kind of inspire the evolution of mankind. So it's
I would say that this movie definitely, like there is there is a sense of grandiosity with the Eternals, especially the very beginning where you see the Domo come in and like the right shot of the Eternals, like really like Chloe Zhao really went out of her way in terms of the camera work, in terms of framing, certain characters to give them this very epic, very. It's like the way the way it's like the movie shot, like it's very. It harkens back to sort of like old school, Hollywood filmmaking, like epics like Lawrence of Arabia or Ben-Hur, just this like immense scale. So I think like Chloe Zhao like really did, she did a good job at emphasizing that
I feel
mythology.
like this movie coming out 2 weeks after Dune did it no favors.
Yeah, that probably did.
Because Rohith, I don't disagree with you at all about the scale thing. I really don't. Like, especially for an MCU movie, it really does pop. It really does. But fucking Dune is Dune. It's like
I get. Yeah, no, I do.
It's a timing thing, it literally has nothing to do with the quality of the movie itself. It's just like you just like the two are very similar as far as the tone and the atmosphere they're going for.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe it's like if you're like getting into like grand sci-fi just through films, like you start off with Eternals, and then when you're older or more refined, then you go into Dune. I guess it's like the way you see of it. So no,
but I honestly followed. I had a much easier time following Dune, the movie, even though I always struggled to read the book. I thought the movie very much streamlined things. So I don't know. Like, I think Dune, the movie, is pretty. I mean, it might just be the fact that they're just adapting the first half of the book, and I'm sure a lot of stuff from the book was streamlined, but.
I kind of disagree, but I guess part of it's that like I have no knowledge or experience of Dune beyond just watching the Denis Villeneuve's like Dune Part 1. Whereas with the Eternals, like I've not personally read the Eternals comics, but my sort of understanding, just general Wikipedia sort of selective, like I haven't, and also just knowing Jack Kirby as a creator and sort of what his interest, like I have a sort of a, even if the movie may not have been, structured as well as sort of you articulated, I at least have a firmer grasp of sort of this is where they're going for the long term. But really, honestly, I think Eternals, like there is such a, I think just the fact of this like premise, like the thing that distinguishes the Eternals from every other Marvel comic project is that it started out in its own universe and then was later brought into the regular Marvel universe, and then was like showed up in other comics once or twice, and didn't show back up to the regular Marvel universe in comics until like Gaiman come in with like the whole amnesia plot. And and here's the thing, I kind of, what's interesting, like I hated, like going back to Captain Marvel and the comparison between the two. One of the things I didn't like was the amnesia plot, because amnesia plots have to have a purpose, because a character that doesn't have an idea who their past is must uncover something that dramatically like changes their worldview or changes their perception of themselves. And I don't think Captain Marvel does that job at all. Whereas the thing with the Eternals, I think it would have been interesting for them to like, if they do have amnesia or just like not have full memories, I would have been interested to see a version of that amnesia plot from the Gaiman comics where they think that like, oh, they're here to stop the deviants or whatever. But then they get their memories and they realize, oh, their original intention was to like lead humanity to their end and bring back the Celeste and the Eternal. And then what happens after that memory gain is determining what, like, do they just go back to where they were previously before the memory loss, or do they just go into, saving humanity? And I think that would be an interesting way of like doing that movie.
Right, I mean, it kind of makes me think a little bit of Rise of the Guardians, where they kind of have an amnesia thing before they kind of repiece together who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned the Eternals, kind of how they were kind of lumped into things. I believe one of the first comics they popped up in was Thor, which we name drop here. That Kingo knows Thor, and Thor doesn't return his calls. Which is funny.
Another King Klingo.
Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing. Again, the core. I think the core concept of Jack Kirby's premise of the Eternals, I think, did carry out really strongly at the top. Where you have that premise of the kind of the beings, kind of these beings from another world essentially show up, and they're kind of helping the evolution of humanity. I love an immortal character. In this case, eternal characters like your Ra's al Ghul's, your Henry Morgans from shows like Forever. Immortal characters are really interesting. They're rife with like possibilities, and I definitely think we kind of fed that into a couple of ways. I think again, it was demonstrated through some of the characters better than others. Like so maybe to bridge into characters a little bit. Phantos I think was one of the breakout characters. Brian Tyree Henry, I love that actor, and I think he did a great job.
You mean Fastus?
Sorry, what did I say?
Phantos.
Sorry. I think I forget if it's spelled with an F or a PH. I think
It's a PH.
That's what throws me. So Fastos.
That's Fastos and Thanos' shipping name.
All right. Anyway, so Fastos, who is not fast, like Makari, so you can see where the confusion lays in.
I think it's more like Fastus or something.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be evocative of Hephaestus.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's absolutely what he's doing. Yeah, Festus the Builder, of course.
I mean, it took me quite a bit of time watching. It's like, oh wait, they're all named after mythological characters.
Which that's what I'm saying. That's the cool immortal thing at play here. Where I love the idea here's the thing. So in the MCU, we had this thing we kind of seeded with the first Thor movie, where we kind of had the cross between magic and science, or that magic is unexplained science, and you have this thing we have in comics that we've had for many years, ever since comics kind of went in vogue. You have the idea that comics are the modern day mythology, so it's kind of a great kind of in-universe blend of that ideology with like, hey, here's like kind of a thing we've kind of lumped in the bigger, headier ideas, like between the cosmic stuff and the magic stuff. As we've kind of grounded it, so for kind of mass consumption. So I think that's really, it's really kind of neat how we did that.
So this especially helps have references to Superman and Batman, who are just basically like modern myths onto themselves, at least for the superhero genre.
Yeah, that's big, by the way. So they've kind of there have been a few light name drops of DC characters in the MCU, and mainly the Marvel the Marvel television stuff. Which again, the big guy in the ball cap, of course, he kind of weighs in a little shakily for my taste. But talking about Feige for the kids. Anyway, but yeah, so it's kind of funny. On the other side of the fence, so the CW, the Arrowverse shows, they've referenced the Marvel stuff occasionally, so it's kind of funny. You have like an official, okay, we have called out Batman and Superman in an MCU film, and so yeah, they do not exist in the world, so it makes sense. It's kind of cool. We finally ruled on that.
I wouldn't be surprised if like some of the DC characters were inspired by the Eternals. If like that's really
yeah.
I don't know if they would go that far, but like that would be just kind of a little bit funny if like it's definitely like for Flash, you could have been inspired by Makari, or Superman could have been inspired by Icarus, and Wonder Woman for Athena, but
the only issue with that was that like they were in hiding their abilities long before before those characters were created. Though.
Well, still though, Athena still leads to Athena though. So I mean, it does kind of come from somewhere. So that they bled into the culture any way you slice it. So some again, not directly, So they're saying the myth. They inspired the myth that then inspires those characters.
More mainly I was more mainly referring to more Icarus and the other again.
Oh right, gotcha. Right.
Like obviously, no, I don't think since Icarus and like Makari, etc., were hiding, I don't think it was like, oh hey, he's a flying guy who shoots lasers. Like, we should make that into a comic book character.
Anyway, so again, just to weigh in on from earlier, the flashback structures in relation to our characters, I think I like
I
it
don't
grew
think it's
on-
as bad as Captain Marvel by any means.
Oh, of course not. No, again, Captain Marvel. The problem is it doesn't land at all in Captain Marvel. Here's the thing. I think the flashback structure works here, but I think it takes a while to get used to it. I think by the back half,
I think the
flashbacks-
pacing is the main issue for me with the flashback structure, just because like you get locked in. Like I said, it's like I was all set to have that stupid fucking Pink Floyd montage that I never got, and I'm sorry, but that's it is what it is. It set my expectations in a place that it couldn't reach, but then it's like, we get in the modern day, we get just enough stuff where I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued. Let's see where this is going. And then flashback. And if we do flashback, that's fine. But it's a long flashback, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The earlier
flashback.
flashbacks were the long ones that felt a little like, okay, can we get back to our story,
Yeah,
please? But then, as we
at
went,
a certain point, I was like, okay, like, is this going to be like half the movie? Is this flashback, and then we're gonna like meet back up with the present day? I mean, it doesn't go quite that far, but I mean, it's a long sit to get back to the
problem is
present day stuff.
to me, we're still missing important details in those flashbacks, the long ones, which feels like
Yeah,
even less.
yeah.
Like, again, like, why did they break up? I still missed that. What happened? I don't know.
I mean,
So that's my main issue with
I mean, like it
with
seems
the
just like
structure, but at least I could follow the flashbacks, unlike Captain Marvel.
Well, true.
the thing is like Druid left due to his pissiness,
That makes sense. Yeah.
and basically then AJ was like, "You can all go." It's like, okay,
Yeah, that's what
Well,
I'm
I
saying.
mean-
It's a little random at that point.
Well, I mean, the point, at least because in the movie, they all sort of disband because they killed the last of the deviants, and so basically their primary mission's over, and they haven't necessarily gotten any further orders from like the Celestials, and so I think it's just a matter of like the movie. I think it's just sort of the way it comes out. It makes you think like, oh, there's this eternal conflict, but it's really just this like, oh, our mission's over. And the group splits apart, but then there's the whole Druid, wanting to interfere. And I just think that was like, I definitely think there should have been a clear idea of like, all right, the group
Druid was money on the table because that was a really good idea, and we didn't do a lot with it.
Yeah, like I keep saying this, but I feel like we could have done a whole movie of Druid, being kind of like a wayward antagonist. And I think Barry Keoghan definitely has the chops to pull something like that off. Like I thought him being kind of like this cult leader type figure who has humanity's best interest at heart, but maybe is going about it in the wrong way. I thought that was a really interesting idea.
I mean, I'm sorry, Tiki, go on.
And they just kind of drop it. Go ahead.
So, as presented, just with what we have, I mean, I think you're right about the potential there, but the way it plays is that, okay, we teed up that idea, and then why is the guy talking about like, I'm going to just make sure people don't kill each other? Why is he still controlling this town of people? I don't get why he's controlling a town of people when they're not really at war with each other. I mean, that's again, without really exploring that idea, I can't really put those pieces together.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea was it was supposed to be a utopia. I just don't think that we had the screen time to really.
It just seems like he's randomly controlling a village of people, which because again, we don't spend time with them. But again, that's what I'm saying, though. There was a really interesting starting point that kind of caused a little bit of like, yeah, this guy wants to step in. He has a good point for stepping in. Of like, yeah, why should we let people kill each other?
I'm sorry. I just also need to give props to Barry Keoghan just in general. I mean, the dude just has such a fascinating screen presence to him. I love that. He's just got such a distinct face. You never quite know if you should feel sorry for him or be intimidated by him. I don't know.
From Dunkirk.
Oh man, I love his brand.
I mean, the way he talks, interacts with the other Eternals, there's always a bit of an edge to him. And it's like, I mean, I feel like if you didn't know anything, if you just saw sort of how they, just like a certain scene for each character, you would think like, oh, Druid is like the bad guy, but I think it's just more of a like.
I mean, he clocks that little girl in the back of the head, though. I mean, like, bam.
Well, like a more than 1,000 years old.
I know, I'm kidding.
No, but
and at that point, he kind of deserved it.
No, absolutely, yeah.
No, but I think there's some validity to Tiki's argument that you could have had the first movie been like where Druid is an antagonist, and then maybe had a fewer number of characters, make it a little bit more, focused for lack of a better word. And then maybe the second and third movie could have expanded out the cast.
Here's the thing: it wouldn't have come out like out of left field that Icarus is now the bad guy. It would have at least come from a place of like, okay, this makes sense. Of course, like all the great Marvel villains, not saying we necessarily go the full tilt villain with him because it might have been a redemptive thing. Might have like
Icarus's whole thing is hubris, right? So I really wasn't surprised by the reveal.
Well, I mean, didn't it feel like an overcorrection though? Of like, now I'm going to try and kill my brethren. It's like just like really.
I mean, that just kind of underlines Icarus's whole thing is that, as much as he can convey love or, and care for his eternal kin, I think just his overall, adherence to duty and to God. I think it's just kind of the way I kind of view this movie. It's like the Eternals are sort of this like very strong like religious sect, with like a very, with a few members that have like strict adherence to like traditions and, to the whims of a god, even the whims are arbitrary or, destructive.
That is a good way to look at it.
And I think Icarus is just a devout zealot that generally does feel pain for going against his family, but he goes against his family and goes for his faith.
I do think Richard Madden, he saved. I didn't care for that term, but I think he saved it with the whole Icarus flying into the sun thing, which was a really great payoff, by the way.
Richard Madden as Icarus, I felt he was a little wooden at the beginning, especially his first line of dialogue says, "Oh, my name is Icarus." Like I don't know if it was just written. I think it's just the way he delivered it was just a little awkward, and I feel like he didn't get much, meat to chew on dramatically as an actor.
I think it's really unfortunate that like on some level it must have been intentional, but like I'm not even a big Game of Thrones fan at all, like not in the slightest. I didn't even get through season 1, but we cast 2 Game of Thrones actors, like 2 opposing Starks, and they're both competing for the love affection of Cersei.
Not one of them, Tony.
What?
Not one of them, Tony.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, even as someone who just has kind of like a pop culture osmosis familiarity with Game of Thrones and not much else, that still was kind of distracting to me. The whole like, Cersei, I love you, Cersei. Anyways,
so here's something. So
I mean, not the movie's fault at all, but
let me dovetail for a second here, Rob. So I feel with the flashback structure, I do kind of feel like it was the only option given how many characters we had. And again, it feels like, okay, so we have 10 characters and we have to find excuses to get rid of them and then reintroduce them. Like, okay, Jack, we have the killer off so we can do the reunion, and then we got to kind of loop some characters in. Kingo's pretty self-explanatory. It just feels like flashback was like the only route.
Kingo was a lot of fun. I just feel like he didn't add much to the story at all.
He was very watchable though. I mean, Kingo.
Very much so. And I think honestly, like, I hate to say it, but his cameraman kind of added more to the story.
The valet was great.
And I only say that because the valet was like, he's like our POV character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he did have.
I feel like he had more of an impact on the actual story than Kingo himself did in some ways.
He did bring some pathos along with the comedy, which I really appreciate. He gave like a really emotional goodbye.
He's basically the new the new MCU guy. As in like the everyman.
Right.
Are you saying like I would say maybe a Luis would be a good comparison?
Or more like a Darcy or like
I
guess
Luis character.
I could absolutely see him showing up in the Disney Plus side of things as a side character.
Yeah.
Maybe he like there's like a show that has like a in-universe Bollywood production of like an Avengers movie or whatever.
Either that or like an Avengers true Hollywood story or something.
Yeah, he could just be the documentarian to the
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Kind of like how the MCU has its own established vlogger.
Like Luis is doing a documentary on Ant-Man.
Oh my god.
And its own established musical with Rogers' musical.
Yeah,
yes.
It's
Oh
possible.
god.
Oh god.
And here's a problem I have. See, I really enjoyed Kingo. I really didn't appreciate we just wrote him out of the climax. Like, what?
I've heard some people defend it like, oh, it makes sense because, you need to have someone who's kind of like on the fence about it. But I'm like, let me tell you how this plays. This plays like if Han Solo pieced out at the beginning of the third act of A New Hope, and then we see him at the medal ceremony, but he doesn't come back in. He doesn't have, you know what I mean? He
doesn't have the yeehaw
That's exactly how it plays.
So that was the part that really stood out to me in like a bad way. It's like, okay, he gets out of the movie. It's like, all right, he's gonna come back, and that's gonna be like a crowd pleasing moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
And then he doesn't.
Totally
like,
have the ball set up
what?
for a Han Solo, comeback.
Yeah, and then he shows up at the end. And here's the thing: I'm going to go on a mini rant for regards to Kingo.
Go ahead.
Erisham decides to take Cersei, Phastos, and Kingo. Cersei and Phastos, I can understand him taking because they're the ones that actively defied his order. Kingo, I don't
Kingo
understand.
literally did not.
And
yeah.
maybe that's also, maybe in his eyes, inaction is as bad as action defying him. Because, whereas for like Icarus and Sprite, they were actively trying to preserve, follow his orders. But I feel like
they didn't take Sprite because she was human.
Yeah, she would have died in space.
Yeah, and Icarus, All-Star Superman himself.
Pretty much.
John Kelly makes a point that I absolutely agree with, saying if Eternals was a series, it actually would have been a lot better. I feel they needed more time to spend with these characters.
It's so ironic how this works, given the fact that Inhumans should have been the movie.
I know, right?
That's the thing. It's just basically the worst case scenario is that Eternals is going to be a big screen version of Inhumans, which unfortunately, critically, it seems to have kind of become that.
I don't think it's that, though. I really don't. Inhumans, in my opinion, is unwatchable.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying in the public eye now, that is kind of what it's become. I'm saying, because that's the thing. Inhumans.
I would compare this more to like a Batman versus Superman.
I don't think Inhumans even as a show. I just think it's severely underfunded, and it's again it would have served itself better just given the movie treatment and with the MCU budget and everything. I mean, I don't think it's not something that's like a bad series, just like really kind of embarrassingly underfunded.
Basically, if Scott Buck is attached to a show, you'll just have to accept that it'll just be low quality. Like that man hit this and like Inhumans and Iron Fist, like. And I agree with you, Blue Dragon. I think the show was just hampered by the budget.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel it, but I've seen this comment about Eternal should have been a TV series, but I also could have seen it been. I also feel like the issue would have been the same, whereas like this would have been underfunded. I think for a lot of people's issues, I think the Eternals may just have too many characters, and maybe you just reduce it to sort of 4 to 6. Max.
Yeah, I think that would have honestly been the best case scenario.
Yeah,
I agree.
And then pick Cersei. I feel like if there's reduced characters, then probably the issues that some people have with certain characters. So I've heard people say Cersei and Icarus' relationship is not something captivating. Maybe that would have been more developed. And
I feel like the Cersei and Icarus relationship is really captivating on paper.
Yeah. I like that relationship, but I agree there's not enough of it to really form like an attachment to it.
Here's the thing. For me, going back to Richard Madden, I didn't really feel for Icarus until like the third act, like where he like comes out in the open and is just in regards to killing Ajax. Like Richard Madden gets to really shine in the third act as Icarus. Whereas I feel like leading up to it, I feel like he's stoic to a fault. And I don't know if that's just a matter of the script requiring him to play that stoicism or like Zhao, I think may have just like directed Madden to play that stoicism just to be a little bit distant from the other Eternals who latch on to it more. But I think once he puts his cards on the table and realizes to be the primary antagonist, he gets to really feel that pain, that loss. And I think if he was given that sort of emotional range from the start, I think his relationship with Cersei would have been a little bit more interesting. And I think also I feel like Cersei's and Icarus' relationship gets a little complicated with the fact that Cersei has also like a human partner as well. If I think Dane Whip like it's no problem with I don't have an issue with Kieran Harrington's performance or his character, but I think maybe one thing to be more streamlined if it was just Cersei and Icarus that have been together and not been together, but Cersei hasn't got like another partner. Maybe things would have been much more like not focused, if not just like more compact. Because like Icarus randomly leaving Cersei a century ago, and then Cersei with another romantic partner. I mean, that's where like the romance isn't given as much.
Okay, but I mean, like with her having another romantic partner, the thing that I actually liked about that is that we're avoiding the Wonder Woman 1984 problem of like, okay, like, dude, just like he's not the only guy in the universe.
I guess I don't think I think you can still move on without necessarily moving on to another.
You can totally. I guess,
Yeah,
and that is the problem with Wonder Woman is that she clearly had not moved on.
Well, first of all, Cersei just in general, Gemma Chan, I think she did a good job as Cersei. And
I was bored. I was bored stiff by Cersei.
Really?
I'm sorry. I'm chomping at the bits to say it. I'm sorry.
I mean, here's the thing. So I was going to the movie. I was like, because we're a little familiar with Gemma Chan from. I know the fact. Yeah, she had a part in Captain Marvel too, like a bit part in Captain Marvel, but also she was had a better role in Raya the Last Dragon. So, point being, so. I was kind of feeling the whole Cersei and Sprite and just kind of the existence of like, she's dating this Dane Whitman guy and things are going kind of nicely. And, I like that we fleshed her out, the whole relationship
Cersei
with humanity.
Sprite and Dane Whitman, I agree. That's a solid trio right there. My problem with Cersei is that I really don't think she has a lot of chemistry with many of the Eternals outside of like Sprite and I guess Richard Madden.
And you're not wrong. I don't think you're wrong at all about that, Tiki. I'm just saying, like, again, it was like...
I don't know, man. It's like, I don't want to... I honestly think Gemma Chan might be the... I mean, I don't know. Because with Captain Marvel, it's like that situation's really not getting any better, but I don't think she's quite a Brie Larson, but I feel like at least with Captain Marvel, we got a little bit more of like, okay, like she's a hard ass. That's kind of her character, right? Like with Cersei, it's just kind of like she's nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like
I think
there was not a lot. It was a very, very, very mid-tier character who like had an overwhelming amount of screen time.
I think it speaks volumes that a really large part of the movie, the whole plot hinges on like Cersei has to make a choice and doesn't really feel dramatic when she makes that choice.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have been interesting if say like maybe Phastos or Druid or King, like I guess like the three I liked, like they I think had more of an interesting perspective on humanity, because Cersei is kind of like she's from the jump on humanity's side and the most compassionate, whereas with Kingo and Phastos, they don't have like as say a negative view of humanity as they Druid, but they're certainly not like they're not classified as like they're 100% for it. I think Phastos, especially with his understanding of where his technology led, I think it would have been a very interesting place for him to be the one to make the final call, because he knows what humanities can be at its worst, and because he contributed to it, so he in his mind could really think like, hey, if I get rid of humanity, I just sort of correct a mistake and hope that whatever new life comes about, they don't repeat the same mistakes in humanity. And that I think would be an interesting conflict. Whereas Cersei, like you said, Dragon, it's not really dramatic because Cersei sort of is on humanity's side from the start.
Yeah.
There's no tension about, is Cersei going to really, side with the Celestials? So I agree. I think Cersei, like, in the comics, she is like she's classified as the one of the two, or maybe like the only Eternal that like has an emotional attachment to humanity through her relationship with Dane Whitman in the comics, and so that's just sort of where they go with without really developing like, why is it that she so especially cares about humanity in contrast to the other Eternals, or maybe she has a conflicting view of humanity, and then her final call is her getting to the place where she's the most pro-humanity of the Eternals.
Right. We have a comment, Tiki. Brand spanking new.
Yes. So Joshua Thomas of Just Giggle It says, just got out of it, really enjoyed it, especially since I knew nothing about this story or comic and was very impressed that such a large scope was told in a small runtime. Great characters. Well, Josh, I think your definition of a small runtime differs from my definition of a small.
Well, again, I think he's saying like, well, with 10 characters. That is
No, I see what I get what he's saying. I totally get what he's saying.
Regarding like the characters, I think it was like trying to do the Avengers before setting up the characters.
Okay, Josh wants us to clear something up, Tiki. Put up the next one.
I think Arsham is pretty much God.
Okay, confused the hierarchy of the MCU now that this happened. Okay, let me talk about an issue I have with the movie, right? Because you brought it up. Okay,
but just on a base level, do you not agree that Arsham is pretty much the god of the MCU?
Well, okay. Here's the. Well, I was going to get into my problem, but go on. Rohith, what do you got?
Well, I mean, he is the god up until like the MCU gets into like the one above all. So,
oh dear.
Yeah, no, I mean...
Oh, God. Oh, I don't even want to know.
Okay, so here's my problem with Arsham, and then just where we kind of went with the basically the whole Celestial plot, the whole reveal that, once the emergence happens and the Celestial's born, the planet's going to get destroyed. I think we really overshot something majorly here. We're okay.
Oh, are we going to talk about the Thanos plot hole?
Well, we can right after I tell you what the other thing is. So, because it dovetails into it. Okay, so here's the thing. I think we went a little too ambitious, and the stakes are way too big, very literally here. Because think about it, we have a great
big because the hand is big.
Yes, but here's the thing. So, Arsham arriving at the end is a really cool moment when I do like how the movie ends like he's going to
what I think we really could have used with that moment, I'm sorry, really quick, is a perspective of like the media, like kind of turned it into more of a global event, because it feels like it should be an event that absolutely just rocks the foundation of the MCU to its core.
True, and that's kind of my problem, Tiki, is that so he arrives at the end, and it's a great moment in scope, and I do like the whole I'm going to take it takes the Eternals, and I'm going to judge your memories and then judge this planet, basically see if your memories necessitate the killing of a Celestial for the survival of this planet. That whole thing, that's really cool. The problem is, I think we shot our load on something very important, and this creates a big problem going forward. We've created a big challenge for when we do Galactus now.
Actually, no. I have a fan theory that I think might make Galactus even more of a threat. Because here's the thing: Galactus' whole thing is that he goes out and eats planets, right?
Yes.
Like he has a herald and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way to make him a threat is that he has his herald go specifically looking for planets that have Celestials in them, because they have the most amount of cosmic energy.
No, that's not bad, but still the problem remains. We've used up our giant guy already with Arsham. Like, what are we gonna do? Just throw like Galactus is a little bigger? Is that what we're gonna do?
I think we'll make Galactus like more of a threat. Is that he's not just a threat to Earth, but I think you could have the thing where
Space Cloud 2.0.
I'm just worried. Like, how do we go bigger than the Celestial? We have the epic money. I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Rohith, go on.
Let me make. I think here's how you can make Galactus like a threat. I don't think it's necessarily the scale. I think it's just about how he's presented, and I think the way you could do that is that you could see like the myth and legend of Galactus like going across galaxies, and then have that be information that like eventually goes to like filters out to like the people of the Earth. And it's like, oh, there's this guy who's eaten like multiple planets, multiple galaxies, and that's where you sort of build it up. Whereas, like the Celestials, the thing is, the average public, the MCU, nobody knows anything about the Celestials. They just see this one random guy pop up through the sky and then take 3 people, and that's it. And then when you really think about it, that's really kind of like that's really kind of one of the better things that have happened in the MCU for the average public, in light of what's all happened in the past, right? And 3 people have been taken. Like, literally, they came back from half of the planet, disappearing and coming back. So I feel like with Galactus, you can actually have a presence made that actively, the people's aware, and so you can have the mass hysteria. And I think the media stuff, I think that's all being saved for when Galactus shows up.
And
I mean, yeah, but it's gonna be kind of like go on, Jacob.
two things. Technically, we already kind of had a galaxy eating thing in What If, so there's kind of already that.
Well, yeah, that's like an homage to Galactus, though. It doesn't
No,
count.
But I'm saying is that, and they can necessarily play Galactus as like Galactus like more sympathetic, like they have some in recent comics. Like they've like shown it like as like kind of like a tragic giant monster kind of thing.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. Because the thing is,
and so because whereas like Arashim was just like more like, yeah, I'm doing this to do that, but like you could give Galactus kind of like this tragic monster vibe.
I mean, guys, that's all fine and dandy. I mean, you can. That's what. Yeah.
And one more thing, John Kelling's actually making a good point here. Galactus eating celestial planets is literally what he did in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
He's the apex predator.
oh,
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So it's just going to feel a little weird that, okay, so we have, there's no way they're going to do a cloud again. That's never going to happen. So they have to make Galactus a giant guy, but we're just going to make him bigger than the Celestial. It's going to feel like a little like a rehash. I'm afraid of how we need Galactus to be a giant guy.
Just make him like an alien. Just make him more alien.
What if it's kind of like Galactus versus the Celestials and the universe is caught in the middle?
And my question
There
is,
you go.
I mean, sure. I do wonder if we're going to go the full tilt and just make Galactus like the head.
All right, guys, I feel like we're spending too much time on Galactus. He's not even part of the MCU yet. I'm sorry. I don't mean to like nip your point in the butt, Dragon, but
for the umpteenth time. So,
I'm sorry. I just like this is like we're kind of like digging like a conversation.
All right, fine. Regardless, to reduce a little here, my point being, Galactus or no, that's more of a future concern. The immediate concern, regardless, is do you think like the whole planet being at stake is like, shouldn't we be scaling down in Phase 4 so when something big happens, like, I don't know, like a Secret Wars or eventually like a Galactus, so when something big happens, we're going to feel it versus like, like now the whole planet's at stake and we're not even like halfway through the new phase yet.
I mean, there were like big threats before,
Yeah, but planetary destruction?
We've had multiversal destructions.
There was the
not yet though.
Not the merge. There was Thor: The Dark World, where like if Malekith was succeeded, he could have like let all the realms be in darkness. So I don't think you have to stick to sort of like, oh, every threat has to be small and you build up the big threat. I think it varies from what's needed per story. So I don't know if that I feel like this being as like sort of the global scale necessarily impacts the potential.
With it being a global, I think this should be a global story, frankly, just because the Eternals, like, that's their whole point is to impact all of humanity. Like I said, my whole thing is I really think we dropped the ball on, like you can't just show me news coverage of the thing after the fact and make me like fill in the blanks on what humanity thinks of this. I mean, this is a big fucking deal, man.
And that's what I'm saying.
Like a giant hand just emerged from the center of the earth,
Eternals had like the sort of the news coverage that the Avengers had at the end, where like people on the streets reactions.
Or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Honestly, I still want it to be like when we get to the end of the phase, whatever it may be. I don't want it to be like a Secret Wars or something. We're like, that was just no typical Tuesday. The planet almost got destroyed once when Celestial tried to grow out of it.
Well, in all honesty,
that almost is kind of an Avengers level threat.
Yeah.
I mean, that concern, I feel like that's just something that, that's just sort of a natural part of the comics, right? Like, how many world-ending threats are there? And it's like several of the comics, at a time.
I mean that's a fair point, but
all right. So,
but I mean, this is just I don't know. There's like a villain trying to take over the world, and then there's something that like changes the core foundation of like how you view the world you live in.
Yeah, I mean, again, I love the discussion that comes out of this thing, but still the fact that when it emerges, it's gonna, I don't know, it felt a little literally too big for me. But John
mean-
Kelly wants us to talk about arrows. We got to talk about Star Fox.
I mean, in my life, I only have one Star Fox that I care about, and it's not this guy.
Well, this merges into some of the Thanos stuff, Tiki. So
Sorry.
we meet Star Fox and Pip. Of course, Pip played by the wonderful Patton Oswalt,
Can I
which is
just
really
say
refreshing.
Pip's CGI is fucking terrible?
Yeah, it's not great, but still, it was cool to have him though.
It's cool to have Patton Oswalt, but yeah, I mean, it looks like a 2005 era CG model.
You know what's funny? This character was almost. Many people speculated that he was going to pop up in Infinity War because in some iterations he's involved in the Infinity stuff, so he would have been like possibly Thanos, like a co-conspirator with Thanos or something. I think where he would have been played by. People thought he was going to be played by Peter Dinklage, so it would have been yet another Game of Thrones star, technically.
Right.
Of course, that went a different way. So just a little fun fact with Pip there. Regardless, so assumingly this is a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 setup with Star Fox. That's assumingly what's going on here. Harry Styles as a star, another Dunkirk star, 2 Dunkirk stars in one movie.
Two,
Oh,
Dun-
yeah.
2 Dunkirks, 2 Game of Thrones.
Yep, and a partridge in a Thanos tree. All right, so so here's the thing I question. So we're obviously tiptoeing around Thanos because here's the thing: Thanos in the comics, from what I understand, he's like he's kind of half eternal and half deviant. Which, if they going by what they said in the movie, if deviants are involved, half or otherwise, I'd imagine they would have to act.
Yeah, but the thing is,
So-
deviants or have a specific look to them, and so with the way the origin of the Eternals is in the MCU, it's markedly different from the origin of the Eternals in the comics. So I don't feel like there's any particular contradiction with Thanos.
Well, no, I'm saying they didn't.
To me,
say
the contradiction is the fact that, like, I mean, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but like, the whole point of the Eternals being on Earth is literally to make sure the population grows as big as it can, and Thanos' whole thing is population control. So what the fuck?
Rohith, I'm saying you're right, but I'm saying I'm just questioning the logic of it. We're okay, so we're going a different direction with it, but yet at the same time, at the very end of this thing, we're calling out, like through Pip's introduction of Star Fox, the brother of Thanos. Like, we're dropping the brother of Thanos thing, as in, like, okay, so we're kind of going full tilt with everything now, and yet
I mean, we don't know. We don't know necessarily what Eros could be an adopted. Like, it could be that Thanos is an adopted brother of Eros. You know what I'm saying?
I think that makes the most sense. And I think you're right. It's kind of weird, like, to drop that after, like, I don't know.
I mean, considering Star Fox doesn't have like the weird purple chin, yeah,
that's
I think
because that's the
might be a fair
deviant
guess.
side of Thanos that makes him look all
But,
funky like
but
that.
technically, in the MCU so far, at least so far, it's been stated that Thanos is just simply an alien here.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess they're going that route, but it's just the fact that we're going to drop something like that and keep it vague, and audiences are going to have to guess for okay, so the Star Fox guy and the brother thing, which I'm hoping Guardians 3 will solve,
when I hear Star Fox, I don't think of this guy. I'm sorry.
Technically, this guy came out long before Star Fox.
I know, Jacob, but like,
fine, Eros, take the other
you
name.
know?
Fine,
No,
the other
The
name.
Star Fox I'm thinking of is clearly like a much more well-known pop culture figure than this Star Fox. Anyways,
All right. Anywho, what was I? What was going on with that?
can we talk about how fucking lame the villain? I mean, not Icarus, but like the villain Deviant was.
Yeah, the deviants and I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I was just giving the name of the villain, Crow.
Yeah, Crow. So this guy, like, okay, I've just been so sick of the trailers for this movie, and so like the whole like you can't save any of them. You know what's weird is that's like literally like a third of his whole dialogue in the movie. It feels like, because it's this character he might be the worst storytelling thing in the whole film for me.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So on one hand, when we do our big Celestial review, we have like really cool looking Jack Kirby artwork brought to life, where we have like the People Forge. Is it called the People Forge? Am I missing that?
It's the World Forge.
The World Forge?
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, so the World Forge, that's as Kirby as it gets, man. So you have
But
that.
I mean, nothing about
And-
Crow specifically like makes sense to me because it's like I don't get how he maintained. And just please don't like. I know I'm sure there's an actual explanation. I'm just saying this like as a casual movie watcher who, like I can't just have things like I don't get how Crow evolved like he did. And then he really didn't do anything except confront Angelina Jolie in the cave. Angelina Jolie, I look, I don't want to cast shade on her, but all I'm gonna say is
I didn't like her either.
I've not seen anything that she's done that's wowed me like at all. She always is just one of those actors that like the popularity. It's like as a humanitarian, she seems like a great person, but like as an actress, I have seen nothing from her that's floored me on any level.
Well, she was really good as Tigress in Kung Fu Panda, but
but that's a fucking. I mean, I know saying it's a voice acting role. Like, I don't want to diminish the art of voice.
Well, I'm
acting,
just saying
like,
it's not. I'm saying there are some nice.
I mean, I've seen the movie Changeling, which is a good period drama.
That's probably the best performance I can think of, Rohith, from her. Honestly,
yeah, I'm not as familiar with like Angelina Jolie's filmography. I know there was like Gia Interrupted, which I hear is like
and of course Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
For me, it's just kind of like a cult of personality. Anyways,
well, regardless, her character here is very one note. She has PTSD.
Very. She is sleepwalking through this movie.
Which again, this one is the most like star power role I've ever seen in the MCU cast. I gotta be honest,
easily.
And here, though, to be fair, if I recall, and Rohith, you can correct me if I saw like an image of the Eternals, and I saw there's this blonde-haired character that I'm assuming is the Athena character. And if that's the case, I mean, she does look the part unequivocally, but it's the fact we didn't give her anything to work with, and we had her in there for name appeal. It seems.
Well, I mean, Athena's whole thing in the comics is that she has a relationship with like the head deviant Crow. Since they don't do that, then I guess there's not really like. Because the thing is, the Deviants are such a big part of the Eternals comics, being their own like distinct society, and their whole like angels and devils dynamic with the Celestials being like God or set of gods. But since the movie doesn't do that dynamic, the Deviants are sort of just an afterthought. Dina doesn't really have much to do beyond just sort of the made up like
avenging Gilgamesh is pretty much all she's got.
Well, then also the memory issue, which is like.
The memory issue I thought was really interesting in concept, but I just felt like it was another layer of lore, and like it just felt like it was like I don't. It just felt like it was another ingredient that you were piling onto the soup that was already overfilled with ingredients to me.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it was, I don't think it landed well enough to me. Whatever like her deal was, I couldn't tell. It sounded like she's been in battles, and I guess it's causing a memory thing or a PTSD thing.
No, I think it was interesting because she was like the one Eternal where she was having experience like feelings of experiences beyond just her time on Earth, and I thought that was like an interesting idea to explore. But like a lot of the other interesting ideas in this movie, we don't have time to really do much with it.
Right. Basically, it feels like we're kind of dragging down the better character, which was Gilgamesh.
Yeah, Gilgamesh didn't really do a ton for me, if I'm being honest.
And I think it's because we kind of saddled him with Thena when we couldn't do anything.
I mean, his fighting style was cool, but like I don't know.
The funny thing is regarding Gilgamesh, like I watched this in a theater with Atmos, but like Dolby Atmos, you could feel the impact of his punches.
Oh, it's cool.
Yeah, I like Gilgamesh, at least like when he's with the other Eternals.
Yeah.
But I think what's like the actor Mon Dong-seok, he's in a really fun Korean movie called The Outlaws. That I recommend checking out. I believe it's on Amazon Prime. And he plays sort of this rough and tumble, like I guess like the way you could kind of characterize that role and just maybe other roles Mon Dong-seok takes is like he's like the tough, brawler, like Michael Chiklis kind of guy with like a heart of gold underneath. And I think that's sort of, that kind of character as an Eternal. And what's interesting is like Gilgamesh in the comics, like he's the one that specifically defies the Eternals and like not lives among humanity, but like actively like is a hero among humanity. So if anything, he could have been also like a good, centerpiece because
like from this movie, I would have not got that at all. Literally, it's just like his
No.
whole character is just
No,
like,
no,
I'm
no.
going to protect Thena.
No,
Yeah.
and the character in the comics is more of a proactive, like goes out there character because he's well, the thing is the comic he's the forgotten one, and he goes by several different hero names like Hercules, Gilgamesh, any sort of the mythological heroes you can think of. He was that guy.
I will say this about Gilgamesh really quick.
Sure.
If Avengers Campus is looking for a second character to theme a dining location around,
ooh, yeah.
Just saying.
Gilgamesh's pie.
At least as long as they don't serve his beer.
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, God.
Why is it still on the table?
What would be funny in that dining era is that you just have like posters of like all the roles that like Kingo's played throughout the years as a Bollywood star.
Just pretending to be his
Okay,
father,
I
his
thought that was
grandfather.
honestly like maybe one of the best ideas in the whole movie is the fact that Kingo is like he's a whole bloodline of Bollywood stars.
I love that. I love that he's playing Icarus and he's cashing in on Icarus's story.
Oh my God.
So what's funny, it's like I'm just thinking about the implications. So I was talking to like a coworker that who watched the movie with me, and it's like I'm just imagining like the scenario where like he gets like a random baby and has to pretend to be his child, and then just magically shows up as a son that looks exactly like him. Here's my other theory that actually makes it much more easier is that each person that he his great grandpa and all that, they all are just basically Lotharios or people that just have like wedlock, children out of wedlock, and doesn't have to like explain like birth records or or has to like make up a family and all that.
They all just miraculously take to acting.
Yeah.
Bollywood acting.
All right.
I did like the Bollywood number though. That was really cool.
My issue with that is like it was all of them were singing in English, and it's like that was like no, that just took me off. Like a Bollywood number, you just have the actor speaking Hindi and all that stuff.
That's a fair point.
It did. The funny thing is, it actually kind of made me want to watch more Bollywood movies.
Honestly, Jacob, same.
Well,
I've kind of been like a thing of watching Chinese movies lately. Now I want to watch some Indian movies.
I will say to this: you guys have had a particular point about this movie feeling long. Bollywood movies certainly feel longer.
Yeah.
Rohith, that's pretty much like my barrier of entry for Bollywood. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm aware of that one.
And they're certainly not as they're certainly a little bit more out there, a little bit more.
But I like over the top, though.
Sure. I guess
I don't know. I think I just have to find the right one.
Right.
Yeah. But what I do like is just the way I just love I think one tiny thing I really found it funny was how like sort of the Power Rangers influence of this movie, whether intentional or not. Where all the characters in their civilian outfits just had the color schemes of their costumes.
Yes, with the outfits, and then also the whole we're gonna combine all our powers into one power.
Okay, so let's bridge this into John Kelling's thing. He wants to talk about Sprite stabbing Cersei in the base. He pulled him.
Sprite. I mean, talk about a character that is really, really good and then gets done dirty in the third act.
I like how Kingo put that forward though with the whole Peter Pan thing. He called it out using kind of an old stage analogy, pretty much.
Fun fact: in the Neil Gaiman run, Sprite actually was the inspiration for who's the author of Peter Pan?
J.M. Barrie.
J.M. Barrie's for Peter Pan and Tinkerbell.
Oh,
which I think is really cool.
I didn't know about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And what was it? What run was it?
The Neil Gaiman run.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, leave it to Gaiman, man. He always gets it done. So, here's the Unimind. I was not crazy about the Look, here's the thing. I've seen a Unimind done in that Buzz Lightyear Stark movie.
I was not crazy about it at all.
So I've like when I hear Unimind, I'm thinking something cool like the Buzz Lightyear Star Command pilot movie, and then they did the Unimind here. I was very like, oh, that's it. They're just gonna.
That's what it is in the comics. Where like just like a mass collection concentration of energy. So
let me tell you what I think didn't do it for me. Honestly, if I'm
Sure.
I think it's like an aesthetic thing. The one visual, ever since the trailers and the marketing, did not wow me that much, and I was hoping the end product would sell more. I think it was kind of half and half at the end of the day. As you kind of see by the main image we're looking at here, they have kind of like that kind of almost that gold cursive kind of effect on the power, where it's like I don't know how to describe it, just like
it's like
thin.
geometric, concentric circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah,
it's just how thin the lines are, and like there's not, I don't know, there's the way we visualize energy. I mean, it's kind of good, but in a big thing like that, it just feels like kind of small. Like really, just these thin lines. That's our Uniline.
I think I've heard people make the complaint or mention that like all the symbols and all that are reminiscent of like Gallifreyan language in Doctor Who, and it's like mixed in with like the Green Lantern. Like you're making a construct that's like has all these symbols that are reminiscent of the Gallifreyan language from Doctor Who. So I guess it's not as just having it all be gold. Like it doesn't all pop out as much as say like other MCU movies where there's a little bit more varied color.
Did you guys for a moment think they were gonna do like a Shang-Chi crosser when they started creating those bracelets?
No, but
I mean, in our Shang-Chi Spoilercast, I think Blue Dragon, you had the theory that all the 10 rings came from the 10 Eternals.
Yeah, that was a thought I had. That's why for a moment then I realized the logic. Wait a minute, that can't possibly be the case. That can't work.
I still think Shang-Chi is the best movie of Phase 4 so far.
Well, it's still early.
Oh yeah,
but,
undoubtedly. Yeah.
I guess I mean
I think this is even. I still think this movie is better than Black Widow.
I
would not go that far.
I would go that far.
I would say in ranking
just because I respect the ambition.
Right, hold on, go on, Rohith.
I would say in terms of the Phase 4 films, like I guess I'm the odd man out in putting Eternals over Shang-Chi, but I really like Shang-Chi. I think maybe just for me the Eternals, like sort of the ideas and just the ambition, like I feel like that overrides the flaws that are there. One flaw that I will mention now, I will say, in terms of the action, I don't think the action is really exciting or really, dynamic. And I think that's something that maybe Zhao just didn't, I don't know if she was uninterested or just didn't have like a good way of like doing, the action for these characters.
Action is just not in her wheelhouse.
Well, here's the thing I was getting at with the whole when we got off the Jack, when we got into the whole Jack Kirby kind of the World Forge thing, is that on the other hand you have the Deviants, which are very kind of they're most generic, just kind of like low tiers, like general generic monster sort of creation, which does not help the action at all. It's like, really, that's it. That's our bag. These are the Deviants. I thought they would be something more like like Thanos is like an Eternal with a mutated deviancy, which is why he's all purple and cool looking. I'm not saying it's exactly what they need to do here, but something cool,
No, I think like the only character that really stood out in terms of like the visual presentation of their powers was like Makari. Like when you see him speak, that was cool. I mean, certain characters do have like really cool moments with their powers, like Kingo, like charging up all his energy.
I love Kingo and how he shoots the energy balls.
He basically has like a Yu Yu Hakusho spirit gun.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Very sweet Yu Yu
I'm
Hakusho.
hoping in the sequel, like the characters have like Zhao's like sort of more confident and doing more creative and really just badass action ways of showing.
I love Makari's freak out at at Icarus over Druid.
Yep.
Yeah. I kind of wish like for Makari, like with her being deaf, like I wish she like Felicia had an interesting way of using her super speed to like display her like sign language or whatever.
But a thought occurred to me about the deaf thing. So when we reveal that the whole the World Forge thing, it's like why would you make an Eternal deaf? I mean, given that their mission is not to interfere, like they're not supposed to like you really connect with like the deaf community. Why would you do that? It's cool, but when we have that reveal, it kind of makes you question, wait, why?
Yeah, I guess it's just a matter of like, I guess you just have to roll with it. in the sense it's like, okay, why are all these Eternals like all of different races and speak all different accents and all that? I feel like it's just,
Sure.
I mean, it's just kind of something you just kind of have to like accept and to think it's like, all right, we wanted a sort of diverse cast with, and sort of have that be like the origin of humanity is like colored, multinational, and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Honestly, Rohith, that is kind of how I read it. I didn't really think too much into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the nationality thing because maybe they're going to have to blend across the many nations and the many places in the world, perhaps. I mean, because you're going to go
Even if
places, but
Even
yeah,
if they looked like that in 5000 BC and all that.
yeah, sure. It's just still like, and again, like you technically, I mean, if you're creating an artificial human, you would create essentially a defective artificial
Well,
human for that purpose.
Whoa, boy. Ooh, watch your word in there.
No, I just mean again in terms of in the mechanical sense.
No, I know, but
like
I think maybe one of her points is maybe specifically to appeal to and be related to disabled individuals.
That's what I'm saying. Again, that makes sense, but again, that's not the purpose, though. That's the thing. It's kind of what's weird. That's kind of what makes me think about it.
I think there was an explanation or some like theory. I don't know if this was something that wasn't necessarily confirmed in the movie, but like a particular like fan theory is that like either Makari is potentially made to be deaf because when she goes super fast, she makes sonic booms.
Oh,
or her sonic booms make her deaf.
That's a good idea. I didn't think about that. There you go. Hey.
Yeah, that is a really good idea.
All right, I think Rohith saved it.
All right.
I think he put more thought into it than the screenwriters did.
Yeah.
Can we go back to Sprite really quick because I feel like we kind of skirted over the whole
stabbing thing.
Yeah, the stabby stab.
Yeah, it's a prickish move. I mean, here's the thing, Sprite, again, we set up why Sprite took Icarus's side as a personal thing, but still, it's like, really? You were really chummy. You lived with.
That's what I'm saying, man. And I feel like my big issue with her is that we don't have any sort of comeuppance. It's like the Dear Evan Hansen of the MCU, where it's like, okay, like she does this really shitty thing and she basically gets rewarded for it.
Yep. Oh, by the way, Tiki.
And never in the powers that they have was like, oh hey, we can make Eternals human.
Right. That being human thing came out of bumfuck nowhere, man.
Hey, I still got Unimind powers. Let me do this for you. Anyone have any requests, real quick?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I know out of
Beetlejuice musical. I'll miss you most of all.
Yeah,
Scarecrow.
I think.
I know it's like out of universe explanations, so they can accommodate the characters that the actresses aging in case they ever returns for a sequel. But
of course,
but still,
I think the way because it's mentioned because like Cersei mentions that like it when they were in the Unimind, like Tiamat, that's actually Celestial was part of it. So it could be that like if Tiamat was part of the Unimind, like I don't know if Tiamat has like a gender, but like Tiamat's like powers, since the Celestial can make Eternal however they want, and like they have that Celestial power to sort of make Sprite.
I mean, here's the thing though, I don't really care about the mechanics of it as much as I care about just the whole like the thematics of like she betrayed the group.
A little last minute,
and then we get to reward her.
That's the thing.
I mean, hey, Icarus flew into the sun. He punished himself.
Yeah, which again, I do like that. I do like that payoff. But speaking of payoffs, to kind of like the myth.
I thought it was over the top and silly, but kind of in the Shakespearean way that this movie was going for. So I just kind of went with it.
It felt fitting for him. It was like a joke that they made about him, and they kind of turned it serious. We're like, well, again, I've done terrible things. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to fly into the sun.
John Campea actually made a comparison with Icarus that I don't really agree with, but it was kind of interesting. I don't know if any of you are musical theater fans. I know Dragon isn't, but Icarus kind of has a Javert quality to him, especially at the end of his arc.
The Les Miserables character?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that.
You can see that? Yeah, where it's like, he like his whole thing is like just being bound by the laws, and then, and then the end of his arc is him literally just throwing himself off because he can't deal with the the complexity of his morals.
Well, you know who like really, if anything, Icarus is kind of like the opposite side of the coin with like the villain from The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Frollo?
Yeah, he like Icarus is kind of has that similar like dilemma, but he's sort of a good guy, or at least a little bit more.
But he's actually very similar to the Frollo from the novel.
Yeah.
I mean, Frollo from the novel didn't kill himself, but morally, but the whole moral complexity of it is still there.
Sure.
John Kelly questions if Sprite still has her powers, even as a human. I would say no, but we don't know for a fact. We don't know for certain.
If she does,
I don't know.
All we know, she's not going to live forever. That's all. She's going to actually age. Which
I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have the Eternals return to a subsequent sequel in the near future. I wouldn't be surprised if the characters be split up and maybe Sprite like joins like a Young Avengers or Champions like younger team.
Well, I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Tiki, because they kind of teed up a kind of a King Midas thing with Cersei's powers. Tell me, the big hand at the end. I know we got turned to stone, but it was gold at some point. Did it remind you of Aladdin, King of Thieves?
Dragon, I don't have nearly as much nostalgia for that movie as you do. I've seen it like twice.
Oh, sorry about that. I thought
it's all good.
I misremember that one. Never mind. Well, for the folks out there who do remember that, tell me that doesn't remind you of the cool hand from the climax of King of Thieves.
All right. Hand of Midas.
Yes, the Hand of Midas. Yes. All right. So here's speaking of some cool stuff. The Blade tease.
Yeah, I wish we would have just fucking seen him though. But
here's the thing: I know who that is.
The voice was cool. I just wish that how awesome would it have been if we actually saw Mahershala Ali in costume?
I know how that man sounds, and the moment I heard that, like, oh god, it's him.
Well, I guess
you knew right away who it was. At least I did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Anyone who's heard Mahershala Ali knows who that is.
Oh yeah, no,
I think that probably explains why they cast him long before his movie was even made.
Sure.
That's true.
No,
That's
true.
True.
In all fairness, though, like Chloe Zhao, like when Mahershala Ali got his second Oscar for Green Book, he specifically got in contact with Kevin Feige and specifically asked for the part of Blade.
Ooh.
So,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so I think because the thing is now Blade has a screenwriter and a director attached. So it may be that they don't want to define the look visually for Blade until his own movie with his own director,
that's where I was going along with that.
That's a fair point.
That sounds about right. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. But to be fair, so far, Blade just pretty much looks like Mahershala Ali when he in Alita, where he wears the sunglasses. So anything
Blade
they do,
honestly just looks like baseline Mahershala.
That's what I'm saying. Blade pretty much is most likely going to be
Mahershala Ali chilling on an average Tuesday. That's Blade.
I would love if Mahershala Ali look wise is like more of the old school like 70s Blade comics, with the visor and all that stuff. But I mean, they might like MCU-ify and make it look cool.
They at least did have a Wesley Snipes cameo though.
You think they're going to do that?
I said hopefully they do, because like a passing of the torch kind of thing.
So speaking of passing of the torch, I don't know much about this character. I know there's like an Iron Man character who's similar. I don't know if it's the same character who's like one of the Iron Man Mandarin bad guys from the animated series or not. But you had the Black Knight, who essentially Dane Whitman is like the second generation, more heroic version of the Black Knight. So that's why he was going to.
Feel like, you see, I kind of read up on the post-credit stuff before the movie, frankly. Because I was just like, I just don't care. I just want to see what it is. Just basically just so I knew, right?
Yeah.
Just so, because I had a feeling that I wouldn't know what the post-credit stuff was about. So I just read up on it. Like, okay, like I'll read up on it so I know. And frankly, the stuff with the Black Knight, it's like, if you aren't like in the know, there's no way like the average person who isn't up on the comics is going to know anything about what's going on.
But I like that we gave Kit Harington like kind of a bigger role with that. Like, he's going to be coming back in something. That's kind of cool.
He's going to be playing another Knight character.
Yep.
Right.
Oh,
back to the wall, Kit.
You know what the ironic thing is? I think the sword is called the Ebony Blade, and it's the fact that we tease Blade. It's just the fact.
Well, I mean, it's name dropped like early in the film where Sprite like, oh, is that the Ebony Blade? Like, oh, that's Excalibur.
Yep.
So I think something that's I wanted to mention is that both Blade and the Black Knight are members of like the MI13 team that like Captain Britain's a part of.
Right.
Like, and they had like the run of comics written by Paul Cornell, and I think the first major story arc is like Dracula launches a vampire invasion from the moon.
Oh,
Well,
God.
we know the Inhumans and Steve Rogers are there, so it's going to be interesting.
No, but I think it makes sense for Blade to show up because in the comics he's a British character, which hasn't necessarily been faithfully adhered to in other media, and it's likely not to be the case in in the MCU with Mahershala just speaking with a regular American accent. I could believe where with the MCU, like he could have been born in like Great Britain or England.
He could at least have British ancestry.
Yeah, or he just like was born there and then left like early on, came to the States, and comes back to Britain or England because there's something like dealing with his past, and then that's where he encounters like all the other British superhero characters, and and sets up MI13 Excalibur or the Midnight Suns, with all the supernatural, mystical part.
Yeah, I wonder if my assumption. I think the safe bet is that Dane Whitman's going to be in the Blade movie, but I mean they are doing it's a movie for Blade, right? It's not a series.
It's a movie.
That's what I'm pretty. Yeah, okay. So it's either going to be that, or he could be in the Moon Knight series. Perhaps we introduce Blade through there,
or he could be in an Avengers movie because Black Knight is in the Avengers for I think in either the mid to late 80s or like more in going to like the early to mid 90s. Like him, Cersei, Hercules, Crystal, and I think one other character. Like,
well, I mean, they literally teased Blade though, so I think Blade is probably
I'm saying Blade or the soonest we could possibly get it would be Moon Knight, but Blade is probably the safe bet.
And I mean, Blade's the most well known out of all of those.
And we just announced Thunderbolt, so we don't even know what one of the next Avengers or what's going on necessarily. So it's
All right, guys. I think I kind of want to just start wrapping this up.
Sure, John Kelling says
all the characters. So
there's put a funny button on things. John Kelling says Moon Vampire sounds way more exciting than Celestial hatching from Earth.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I think we.
Do you think the MCU would be able to pull that off?
Well, we have been talking up the moon in Falcon Winter Soldier, so it's.
We've been having. I think Phase 4 is pretty much like it's gonna end up like being the space phase. Honestly,
yeah. Phase.
I mean, we do have Gail Garcia Bernal as the Werewolf by Night for the Halloween.
Yeah, they're doing a Halloween special for Werewolf by Night, which I completely forgot about.
And also, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw out. I know I've been throwing out this guy for a couple casting things recently, but I'm gonna throw out Javier Bardem as MCU Dracula.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Are there any like popular? I think Bill Skarsgård actually would have been a good Dracula. But
well, no, Bill Skarsgård. He's in this movie.
I know that's what I'm saying. He would have been a good Dracula.
Bill Skarsgård was. Can I just say he was absolutely wasted in this movie?
It's not too late because he was. They did kind of like the mocap sort of thing on this. They could actually put Bill Skarsgård as Dracula.
I guess they could, but like I don't know.
Although considering things, they might actually go with like an actual Romanian actor or somewhere from that area.
My pick is Mads Mikkelsen's brother.
Oh, Lars Mikkelsen.
Lars Mikkelsen.
Well, remember, they've cast him as Thrawn for the Ahsoka show.
I mean, if Oscar Isaac could be Poe Dameron and Moon Knight, like
didn't he voice Thrawn too?
Yeah, that's the thing. So that's what's really cool about it. They got him.
Kumail Nanjiani is both Kingo in Eternals and will be a cast member in Disney's Obi-Wan series.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah, cool.
All
right. Let's see. Just rounding things out here. John Kelly Man-Wolf movie. When I believe he's talking about the John Jameson. How John Jameson he was an astronaut who became the werewolf essentially.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you do a Man-Wolf, he's got to be John Jameson.
Well, here's the thing: if they do that, they'll never do this. But the big thing I remember Man-Wolf for is that John Jameson he was engaged to She-Hulk. So
yeah.
I love that story.
What if John Jameson was a fucking character in She-Hulk?
Tiki, that's the thing. I would love that. I hated how there was that
my
story
son, the astronaut.
That story ended tragically, in my opinion, but I did love it when they were engaged and they had J. Jonah Jameson having to deal with having She-Hulk as an in-law.
Oh,
It was
God.
hilarious.
Oh, so speaking of She-Hulk, if they ever do like any follow-up or whatever, like and if like Erisham, he's the judge, right? Have like She-Hulk be the attorney representing the Eternals on trial.
Ooh.
So it'll be just like a weird mix of 2001: A Space Odyssey and A Few Good Men.
Not bad.
Nice.
Not
Nice.
bad.
All right.
All right, so I guess should we thank the folks and blow this pops
Yeah,
down?
sure. Okay, so big thanks to John Kelling, of course. He's been with us a big, substantial portion of the evening. Also, that guy and Beowulf. Big thanks to all y'all. And also big thanks to Jacob Weil for coming on and Rohith. You guys are awesome.
And
yeah.
Just Giggle It.
And Just Giggle It, you're right. Sorry. Just Giggle It was only 2 comments. And that guy popped in for a bit as well.
Yeah.
So, all right. Yeah. Good turnout tonight, guys.
Thanks for stopping by, Rohit.
No problem. I'm eternally grateful.
Yes,
All
saved
right.
our lives. We are eternally grateful.
Yeah, just like the LGMs. Okay.
Taking away the moments that make up a dull day.